FM in New Orleans. We are Radio No HIV with programming. That's right, programming dedicated to human rights and social justice. WHIVFM.org. We honor independent voices. We are not a radio station with a mission. No, we are a mission with a radio station, and that is to end all wars. Welcome to NoiseFilter, the live weekly, used to be daily, but the live weekly show that we do every Wednesday night. Sitting across the digital divide is usually my friend and yours, Dr. Eric Griggs, but he will be joining us in a little while. So sitting across the digital divide is your new best friend. That would be Eric Coolcard Hawkins. Coolcard, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was such a pleasure doing your show last night. We'll talk about that in a second, but how are you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing wonderfully well. Can't complain. I appreciate you having me on.
Great. Tell us a little bit about everybody. You guys are going to love Eric. He had Doc Griggs and I on last night on his show. He has a great YouTube channel. His show is called Kicking It with Coolcard. It's on Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can find his YouTube channel pretty easy, a lot easier than you find ours. If you go to YouTube and type in NoiseFilter, no, you're not going to get us at all. But you type in Coolcard, boom, you got it. Eric, tell us a bit about your show and how you got started with it before we get started.
Oh, well, originally I was, I'm an actor, first and foremost. I've always been hosting. Before I was going out to nightclubs, award shows and stuff, I had a team. We'd go out, get interviews with, actors, singers, whatever, and then up and coming artists. So that kind of fell by the wayside. I don't know what happened with my cameraman. Anyway, we lost touch. So I started doing
was it COVID? Reviews. I mean, you could easily just say COVID happened.
No, right? No, I'm telling the truth here. I'm telling the truth here. So we didn't fall out or anything like that. I don't know what happened. Anyway, so I started doing tech review because I'm like a huge gadget guy. So I was doing tech review on YouTube, and I was like, man, this is fun. It's cool, but it's just not fulfilling me. I'm missing my purpose here. And me, I like to talk to people. I like to talk people through things. I like to help people. So I had to revamp the show, and it took me like a year to figure out what I wanted to do. But in a nutshell, long story short, I figured out what I wanted to do because just surfing Instagram and me being on Instagram as an actor and trying to promote myself and stuff like that, I see all these people, trying to sell master classes and this and that and the third, but everybody can't afford it because everybody wants to charge $1,000, $3,000 for master classes. Everybody can't afford that. But I see so many people out in the world that have dreams, goals, aspirations, but they just don't know what they need to know, and people can say, oh, well, go to YouTube, go to Google. Some people aren't resourceful. Some people just don't know what they need to know. So the goal of my show is to provide value to the end user, which is the viewer or the listener, with guests that come on with transparency about, their journeys, their struggles, and their crafts and their career fields, and just be transparent, be open about it. I don't ask personal questions, but we just kind of, we're transparent and we're really just kicking it. It's a cool conversation. Relaxed. Normally, I say it's a 30-minute show, but it always goes for an hour plus because we have such great conversations. And of course, people love talking about themselves. And that's great because it just provides more and more value to the viewers. And that's what it's for. I can't do it without them. I do it for them. And my guests, man, they're phenomenal, like as yourself and Dr. Griggs. I just thank you. I couldn't do it without you guys. So
yeah. So last night, y'all, we were on Coolcard's show. We had a great time. We went, and I still I could say it now on my show. I love that you drink with a cup with your face on it. That's total next level extra. That's like here, you know what that is? Actually, I have a graphic for it, dude. Every time you drink with that cup, I'm going to do that. Cause that's what that's like. That's what that is, man. That is some next level extra stuff right there, man. I love it.
Hey, man. I mean, listen, my goal is to have a TV show, a talk show, right? Something like a Steve Harvey or Oprah, something where I can bring people on and like really, really help them. Giveaways, mentorship, whatever, just to really help people. So I'm taking this thing to TV. I don't call it a podcast. I call it a show. As you can see with my intro, it's all nostalgic, like Johnny Carson and all that.
Oh, yeah, no, I love it. Yeah.
And here's the thing, and I appreciate that. And here's the thing. So I didn't think of the mug. My wife got that for me as a gift, and she was like, "Now you're a real talk show host." So I was like, "Oh my god, I love it."
Absolutely, man. No, it's your wife's got something going, man. That's some next extra. That's some next level extra. I love it. I love it. Well,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Before we go ahead and get started, please check out the show. Yesterday, Doc Griggs and I were on. It broke from format from this show. Obviously, we were able to air the animations, and we showed the clinical trials animations. I think we kind of meandered, and I think it was appropriate, but still we ended up talking about structural racism, which is of course something we do on this show a lot. And I thank you for opening up your show, for allowing us to have that conversation. It's usually a little, some people kind of, have us stay away from stuff like that, and I understand, and you welcomed it, and so I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then the rest, after we got through kind of that, then we just giggled for the next hour after that.
Right.
So
Yep.
it was great. So please go ahead and watch that show, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. And so from that, before we get started, this is kind of like a, oh, and by the way, y'all, Eric Griggs, Doc Griggs, will be joining us at 6:30. So Doc Griggs is not away. He just has another panel that he's on, and he'll be joining us soon. Any questions before we get started? Any new topical kind of interests, or with respect to COVID, before we dive deep into COVID right now? Any story catch your eye? I know I'm catching you totally off guard. If not, we can just jump into it. And
there was. It's fleeting right now, but there was a question. I thought about it after the show. I was like, dang, I forgot to ask that. COVID. Okay, let me ask you this, so you talked about the booster. Now you're saying you think that it's going to go into effect to where it's like the flu shot every year. So
that's what I suspect. Yes.
Is it just going to be a booster shot every year, or is it going to be like
that's what the flu shot is. It's a booster shot.
Oh, it's a booster shot. Okay, I got you.
Right. So the flu shot, well, it's not. Let's split a very fine hair, because it's actually a really good question. The flu shot does. You have seen so much flu over your lifetime. Do you get the flu shot every year?
No, I do not.
Have you ever gotten it?
No.
Okay.
Please. No. I was even against getting the shot, the jab for COVID. I know.
Let's talk about this.
I did.
I hear you. I know.
But yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Why were you against it?
I have no idea. For me, it's like, okay, growing up, I've always heard that, once you get the flu shot, is something that you kind of always got to take, or your immune system kind of weakens or whatever. So you just got to stay on it. Right. So I was like, I don't want that for me. And I'm not a sickly person. I've probably gotten the flu maybe twice in my life, like really, really bad, bedridden, hurting, aching, whatever.
That's
twice. So yeah. So I never took it. Right. So the same thing with the COVID shot. I was like, you know what? I'm going to mask up. I'm healthy. I know I can get it, but I'll take my chances. And then I just didn't want to put something foreign in my body, and it wasn't fully, approved as of yet, and they were still going through trials. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do it. Now I will say this. I was still against it when I got it. And it's not that I'm against the shot. It's just me. I don't like to put stuff into my body like that. However, I did it for my kids. So I'm like, listen, I got to be here for my kids. I got to be here to raise my kids. So that was the decision that, my wife and I made. Is like, listen, we got to be here for these kids. At least we can do that, So there you have it. I don't want anybody else raising my kids.
Did you get it? That's good. Did you? And I'm sure your kids don't want anybody else raising them either.
Right.
Did you get the booster?
No, I did not get the booster. I can't say that I'm not going to get it, but no, I have not gotten the booster yet.
Please get it. Please get it. So to answer your first question, what about flu? So the thing with flu is that you've only been exposed to a couple of flu viruses. You probably have seen other flus that just never manifested into a full blown out influenza sort of thing. But you're right. You're not a sickly person. I hear this all the time. But you never know. You probably are. You a good driver? You drive. You live in the South in a major metropolitan city that requires you probably to have to drive. Right? You a good driver?
Yes, I am.
When you get in your car, do you plan on getting in an accident?
No, I don't.
It's an accident, right? It just happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I've
same
been
thing
in
with
plenty too. Listen, I've been
yes,
in plenty and they have never been my fault, by the way.
right. See, there you go. So the same with influenza. You don't plan, like you never plan on getting influenza, but if you're exposed to it, you may get it, right?
Yeah.
And so what's in the vaccine are different strains that are meant to, one, that may be the circulating strain, or it also may be meant to actually boost what strains that you have already in your system. So it's a balance. So the same thing with the COVID vaccine. If you continue getting the COVID vaccine, which I would obviously recommend that you do, and you boost every year, obviously I'm going to recommend that. Yes,
Right.
that would be considered a booster. So these are super, super important. Eric Griggs and I got vaccinated all 3 times live on television.
Oh, wow.
And where I vaccinated him. On the 3rd time, I personally vaccinated him, and then the first 2 times we had nurses vaccinate us. But we, we're super, super committed to keeping that message out there. And I just want to go back to one thing that you said to kind of correct the message. That's not true. That once you start taking influenza vaccines, that you have to start taking your immune system degrades. That the immunity doesn't work like that. But you should, once you start taking, you should take it regularly. That's real and that's true. If anything, because it's the same thing like I said yesterday with the seatbelt analogy, right? You don't plan on getting in a car accident, obviously, but if you do, you're going to be happy you have that seatbelt on, especially if it's a really bad car accident, because that's going to limit the severity of illness. So even if there isn't a perfect match, and there never really is every year for influenza, but just having that vaccine on board is going to limit the extent of any sort of severity of disease. So anyway,
what are the risks of not taking the booster?
I'm going to show you right now.
you're
going to look for the next 50 minutes. You're going to hear all about it. You ready?
Okay.
So the way that this works, and again, Eric is going to be jumping on in just a little while. The way this works is that you just go ahead and because I'm not going to be able to see you because I'm going to be on a different screen. Okay.
Okay.
But I'm going to just really encourage you. I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between this screen and us, and really just encourage you to please kind of like stop me. Let's talk and all that stuff. Ask questions, whatever. So I just want everybody to remember that I get a lot of this information I'm getting from Dr. Angelina, who's a epidemiologist. She goes by your local epidemiologist. A lot is by her, especially when we're talking about BA2, as well as the new Omicron variant, and then talking about vaccines under 5. This is her content. I want to give her credit up for that. So that being said, I'm going to do epidemiology end. So let me go through this right now, and let's jump directly to what we talked about last week. Did we at all last night about this new BA2, the Omicron variant? Was that something conversation last night?
Well, we talked about Omicron, and you said that it was a lesser variant than Delta as far as
right. In terms of severity of illness. Right.
Yeah, we did speak about that. Yeah.
Okay, so technically it's called the BA2. So what are some updates with it? So let's talk about some updates. So one of the things that we're seeing, and I'm going to show you when we get to our epidemiology section, is that one of the things that we're seeing is that cases are still more or less still going up in different parts of the world. And the parts of the world where things are still going up, it's likely it's because of BA2, that subspecies of Omicron. So again, it's BA2. We can't really tell unless you do genetic screening of it. Whereas with the Omicron, you can tell on PCR that it is Omicron. So it's likely we're still seeing a greater rates. Now, we did talk about transmissibility. This B2 has 126% growth rate over BA1. So this means that this is way more infectious. Here you have BA1, is what we colloquially know as Omicron. Here is BA2, and just look at the difference
Oh,
that
wow.
this variant has. This is an incredibly infectious variant. Appears to be more and we already knew that Omicron was way more infectious, but look at this, BA2 even more infectious than BA1. And again, BA1 is what we refer to as Omicron. BA2 is going to probably take the name as Omicron 2. Now we need it. Go ahead.
So BA2 hasn't hit us yet.
We have not probably seen it. There's a couple of cases in Texas that we are aware of. That was in Houston. It had BA2, but we don't know. But what we're going to probably start seeing is you're going to see when we get to that section, probably in about a half hour or so, you're going to see cases are going down in the U.S., but if we start to see an upturn in those cases, that's likely going to be because of BA2.
Got you.
Does that make sense? So again, it's called the stealth virus, and I left that slide, even though I presented it last week. I left the slide in there so that you can kind of see. Now, one of the things that we have talked about in the
question. Can I ask you one question?
Of course.
Why does it seem like the variants always show their face overseas and then they make their way over here? Why is that?
We've had some homegrown variants here, but we, despite us having low vaccinations, we're like at least now at 50 or 60% vaccinations. The countries that have the lowest vaccination rates have the highest likelihood of kicking out these variants, because the people who actually are kicking out the variants are people who have who are immunocompromised. So they're people who have long-term chronic infections. For example, if you and I get infected with Omicron, we may be sick for 5 or 6 days. Our body clears it. We're done. We're vaccinated, whatever. But people who have who are immunocompromised, let's say like the person that it's suspected that Omicron came from South Africa, it's suspected that they came from somebody with end-stage HIV, which we used to refer to as AIDS, or what we used to refer to a terrible term, so please nobody ever use it, but what we used to refer to as full-blown AIDS. Right? Stop. That should never be said, right? End-stage HIV. That they didn't have the immune system to clear the virus. They were unvaccinated, so the virus just replicated in their body for a long time until a really good variant emerged. Then it popped out, and it was successful from the virus's perspective, not successful from our perspective, right? So we refer to that as viral fitness is the term that we give that. So it was a very fit virus, and so it was able to literally in less than 2 months just explode across the globe. And it could be that we may be seeing more things like that moving forward in the future. This is why it's really important for us to vaccinate the globe. Now, one of the things that we talked about in the past is something called escape immunity. So anytime we talk about viruses, we always, especially a new variant, the things that we want to talk about is how virulent it is, how severe it causes disease, how infectious it is, and then if it can escape the immune system. So those are the three big things that as virologists, this is what we think about. We think about new viruses, especially these new Omicron or these new COVID variants. And the thing that I'm going to bring your attention to this confusing table is that after 3 doses of vaccine against both BA1 and BA2, what you're looking at is vaccine efficacy. So this is again against severity of illness. Again, so if you've had 3 doses, so Eric, I hope you don't mind if I use an example. Now, the vaccine at 2 doses has you about 9% vaccine efficacy and 13% against BA2. If you've had 3 doses, you're at 63% vaccine efficacy against BA1, 70% against BA2. So these are not nearly the numbers that we saw against Delta. So we do know that there is some escape immunity here, but it's super, super important. I can't stress it enough. Vaccinate, and boost. Because these numbers are going to start going lower and lower and lower. Did you see, Eric, did you see the second vaccine animation? The one where there was the kind of like the virus that was trying to blow the house down. It was the 3 little Griggs.
Yeah.
And what we were trying to show in that we wrote over a year ago, we wrote it about a year ago, we predicted that we would see new variants. So with new variants, the old vaccines are not going to necessarily work. You're going to need updated vaccines, and so those are kind of like the boosters that we were talking about at the top of the hour. So, but still, we still are seeing some protection, and we are seeing Moderna is because probably some of these lower rates, if even the boost, I mean, let alone the 2-dose, I mean, but the 3-dose, that you're seeing that Moderna is starting the process by which they are creating a very Omicron-specific vaccine. Now, with this going, and what I want to kind of highlight is that we've been watching South Africa, and the reason is because it emerged out of South Africa, and you could see this magenta or this pink curve right here. That is what South Africa looks like. So it peaked, it's falling, but what we need to look at is this green right here. This is the BA. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This red right here, this deep red right here. This is BA2, and there's suspicion that we are going to see more cases in Africa again, the BA2. So, and again, I think that South Africa has like a 25% vaccination rate. I know I showed this graph last week, but I wanted to show this graph to Eric Coolcard Hawkins so I can show you something that I think is an important point. I think it's important for all of us to know, and that is that every time we talk about a variant emerging, right? We have a new variant, a new variant, a new variant. The wild type strain that emerged out of Wuhan, that, you know, the strain that came after that was Alpha. They were completely different. They came from completely different, what we refer to as phylogenetic trees. They were completely different from one another. Then you had Beta, then you had Gamma, then you had Delta, right? And then after Delta, it feels like Omicron came. And they all emerged separately from one another. And so the point that I want to show you here that I think is important for us to know is that this is the first variant that emerged directly off of BA1. So here's the BA1, which is referred to as a phylogenetic tree. So these are all the different mutations. I know this is kind of crazy to look at if you're not used to looking at them. It's even hard for me to look at them. But you can see BA2 emerge directly from BA1. And the thing that's unique about this, and I think we may have mentioned this last night, Eric, is that that what we are seeing is a much more infectious and a much more mutated virus than BA1. So the subspecies BA2, and there's some suspicion that it happened too fast for evolution to occur within a human, and so there's some suspicion that this may be the first virus of the COVIDs that we have seen that actually went into an animal reservoir, mutated in an animal reservoir, and then kicked back out back into humans as well. So real quick question, let me answer a quick question with sorry. Is it better to switch vaccines for your booster shot? It's a good question. There was the mix and match was okay. You could I got the same ones. I wanted to stick with Moderna because the Moderna did perform better than the Pfizer. I mean, just by a little, but still it did perform better. So I took the Moderna booster and not the Pfizer. But if you do want to mix and match, it's totally fine to do that. So any questions there? Am I scaring you sufficiently enough to now know that the virus can get into an animal reservoir and completely mutate separately there?
I have a question about what has been the effects of the virus in animals.
It's in some places been bad, actually.
Really?
I think there was a large cat somewhere in maybe Pennsylvania, somewhere in your neck of the woods, Georgia, somewhere. There a large cat at a zoo who died. We've heard of large cats, I think, dying. Of course, if Doc Griggs would hear, one of the stories that really stuck with him, he's an empath of incredible proportions. They had to cull something like 50,000 minks in Denmark or the Netherlands because it got into a big mink population and it spread significantly. And the fear was that it was going to come back to humans. So they had to cull the entire so it does affect animals deleteriously as well. Now, probably not your pets, but I do warn people that if you do have COVID, I would try to keep your pet away from you. That's usually the time you want your pet to be with you, is when you're feeling crummy. You like that love and attention.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Mignon is absolutely right. There was a city in China that recently took their hamsters because they were carriers. I did read about that.
Wow.
100% correct. So
I've
anyway,
never heard any news about pets. That's what I was asking, or animals.
Yeah, there is some animals, and there have been some examples of animals doing it. Now, I showed you guys this slide last week. I kept it on here for Eric Cool Card Hawking so that you can see that this is being referred to as a stealth version of the virus. So why do they call that? It's because the Omicron still had a spike that the PCR test could recognize, but because of all of the mutations that we see along with the BA2, the BA2 virus, it doesn't get picked up on the PCRs. So you have to rely on genetic testing. Now, in the state of Louisiana, my wife was the one that everybody here knows the story. They've heard me tell it a million times. But this time last year, I asked my wife, what could I do? As she was part of the city recovery, she's like, oh, you know what I need? I need you to go and start me a variance lab. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll start a variance lab. So me and a very brilliant scientist here in town, her name is Dr. Trivia Fraser. She's brilliant. Dr. Fraser and I went and we pulled together resources from Ochsner and LSU, and we were able to get a variance lab. So Louisiana has its own variance lab, so we always know up to date what the variants are. Of course, you being in Atlanta, the CDC is going to have up-to-date information as to what's happening in Georgia as well. But the thing is that we only test about 1% of our samples, whereas other countries usually test about 10%. The number of samples you should be testing is about 10%. So that would let us know if we do have Omicron 2 or not.
Why is the percentage so low here, the testing?
Because this is America and we don't collect taxes, and we don't put resources into science, and we whittle away all the social safety network programs until eventually there's nothing left and we're all in the Hunger Games. Anyway, as we move forward, obviously
Sounds
joking
right.
a little bit. Sorry, not sorry.
Sounds about right.
All right. Let's see. I think we talked about that already. So anyway, so Omicron is peaking across the globe. This is probably drawn out because of BA2, and we're going to probably see greater hospitalizations and deaths that are following as well. All right. So what we're going to talk about now is you don't have to tell me, but do you have children under the age of 5?
No.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about what's going on for children under the age of 5, and we're going to talk a little bit about what is happening, what the science is there. So the vaccine started for under 5s in May of 2021. Pfizer went through all the necessary steps to get the vaccine approved. They did a 6-month trial for the under 5 population, and the idea was to give the least amount of vaccine that would promote the biggest response. And so just like, yesterday you saw our clinical trials video that went through what phase 1 is, what phase 2. Phase 1 is looking at safety. Phase 2 is looking at dosing. Phase 3 is looking at efficacy. And phase 4, they look for they follow up, right? And so what they did is they combined, they're doing this now, they're combining phase 1 and phase 2. And what they were looking for is they dosed multiple multiple doses to healthy children. But what they found was that because of the multiple doses they used, they were unable to hit the right dose. So they did not get that peak, that bump, that spike of antibodies that they were hoping for. So they had to actually toss the whole project out, and they had to start all over again. And so that's what we're going to talk about now moving forward, is what did they do? How did they change the dosing process? And again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to give the least amount of dose with the highest amount of antibodies. So what they did is they looked at 3 micrograms. This graph is showing they had very little in the form of side effects. They did have some fevers, they had some chills, but what they did find is that just with the 3 micrograms that you had the high. So here's your 3 right here. You had the same amount, more or less, of antibody response, even though you go up. So when you look at 10 micrograms versus 3 micrograms, you have more or less the same antibody response. But the higher you went, you had more side effects. So this is something that the vaccine folks have to kind of consider. Do you want a high dose? Of course, because you want to get the highest antibody response, but do you do it at the expense of creating more side effects? And so the idea is to not do that. So what they do is, again, so you go for the lowest dose possible that gives you the maximum antibody response. And so that's kind of where they're at right now. And it looked like they were very successful with that, because that 3 microgram dose worked very well. So then as they move forward, like it says here, they found their sweet spot. And now what they're going to do is they're going to move forward with respect to, I think Doc Griggs is joining us right now. They're going to be moving forward with that 3 microgram dose. Eric, I'm just wrapping up under 5 vaccinations right now, but I just wanted you to kind of jump in and say hello and say hi to Eric Coolcard Hawkins.
What's up, Doc?
Long time no see, sir.
Eric, your volume is really low.
Let's see if we can turn it up.
Doc Griggs, your volume is low. I will say this, Eric Griggs, Doc Griggs, for all of the charming and charismatic and talking that Coolcard did last night, he's sitting here, eyes wide open, looking at graphs and charts, and he's like, whoa.
Yeah, you see that, right?
Yes. Some heavy stuff here, man.
Yeah, welcome to our world. Welcome in.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So just to kind of, I think this is wrapping up. Yeah, I'm almost wrapping up here, and then we can kind of open up the conversation a little bit before we get into epi stuff. But essentially, whoa. I have no idea what just happened. Sorry, guys. Let me stop that. That was kind of like putting a mirror in front of a mirror, right?
Yeah, that was I thought we were in the Matrix. I did have
that's what it felt like. So again, the previous under 5 study did not work, and so they're announcing Plan B, which is to get those 3 micrograms 2 months after the second dose. They're expecting results in mid 2022. So what they're doing now is they're going to seek an EUA, an emergency use authorization, for 3 micrograms for under 5. And so I think that this is a really big deal. And I think it's important for us to continue following. This is starting to get into neutralizing antibodies. And one of the things that we need to recognize is that do wane after some time. Those are a very specific part of your immune system. But the bottom line is, I think that over time, we are seeing waning neutralizing antibodies. So this is why boosters are so important. And what we're looking at here is hospitalizations by age. And what we are seeing is kids getting hospitalized. I think we talked about it today, Eric, and I think it bears repeating that we have a lot of children who have had COVID, and we know that 10 to 20% actually can develop long COVID. So the idea of not protecting these children is really, really like counterintuitive to me, because we hear that, this country and our society is supposed to protect, right? Even as just animals, we're supposed to be protecting our children. And the fact that we are allowing children to, go to school without masks and go to school. Go to you got parents going to the school board meetings demanding that masks not be worn or whatever, and all we're doing is we're just setting up these vulnerable young people to potentially have long COVID. So with that, I'm going to just kind of stop and let you guys kind of take over the conversation. We got about 15 minutes worth of epi stuff, but I figure we have like about 10 minutes to kind of chat about or cool cards or any questions that you have based on any of the stuff that we showed.
No, not really. Oh, what about yeah, I do. I'm sorry. Yes, I do, actually. Boosters in children. So 5 to 11, they just passed that, what, November it was? They passed it in November.
Is there? I
Yeah,
think
I
there are.
don't know about that.
I think they are boosters in children.
Let's look
No,
at
I
it.
don't know about. I'm
that
just
was
saying
just-
the shot itself for children 5 to 11 was approved back in November. So I'm asking
Yes.
about, are boosters coming?
I thought that boosters were
Boosters are available for age of kids 12 and up. They're advised for
okay.
kids 12 and up.
Okay.
It's 12 and up right
So
now.
what they're doing
Remember
is
the process of this with the clinical trials. On the cool card, Eric, is de-escalation. You find a safe dose in the adults, and because kids aren't just mini adults, there's different physiology. You have to slowly back it down to find a safe dose, and that goes with each dose. Is one going to be enough? Is two going to be enough? Just because the adults need a third dose, there's different immune systems, and the body physiology changes through the different phases of life, and it's not just based on an age. I was a late bloomer. I really didn't hit puberty till 15 or 16. There's some kids nowadays hitting it at 11. There's a lot of things involved, but of course the intent is to find a standardized dose for each of them. And again, I make the point that we are sitting in a science class that none of us signed up for, with a teacher that hates us called Mrs. COVID. And we will not be let out of class until we learn all the lessons for us to safely exit the class. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
painfully so. But so with Mrs. COVID, was she the one that spurred you on to eventually get puberty when you were 15, or how did that did she scare you into puberty? Or?
No. I think I just kind of tripped over a log and finally grew. I was 5'2" till I was like 16, bro. Yeah.
Everybody around you's got a husky voice. They got mustaches. They got hair on their chest. And Eric is like, hello.
And my voice probably sounded just like it does now. And they'd be like, oh, you're cute. Do you have a brother? And I'm like, I'm older than you. Whatever. Yeah.
You're missing out on all the play.
Yeah, dude. I sure did. I want to make we were talking about the long COVID that we talked about, Mark Allen. I want to make, if you can make the point that you made when we were on earlier with Graylin about, there's a misconception, Eric, out here that Omicron is a mild, right? It's mild. I'm gonna catch it. I'm gonna get it over with. The kids will catch it. They'll be fine. Mark Allen, will you please make the comparison you made earlier about Omicron to where we came from?
Right. So just to be very clear, and cool card, this is something I think that you'll find very interesting. This is where Eric is having me make a point. He just basically gave me the ball. Boom, watch me dunk it. Is that
wait? A dunk is like this. This is a jump shot, bro. That's just.
Did you really believe that I knew anything about basketball?
There was always hope, right?
That was basketball, right? No. The truth is that the virulence of Omicron, right? We talk about it as being less severe, but we talk about it as being less severe than Delta. We talk about it as being less severe than Lambda, or Mu, or Alpha. But it's actually the same level of severity as the virus that emerged out of Wuhan. So if you remember almost 2 years ago, we were all like in our homes, locked down, not going out, not doing anything because we were afraid of COVID. That COVID that we were afraid of, rightly so, has the same level of virulence that Omicron does right now.
It's
and yet
just
we're
as lethal.
This is lethal, but we're very laissez-faire about it right now. Now, granted, we do have vaccines and we do have better understandings. We know that masking works. We know that it's important to have, be outside. be in areas where good ventilation exists. But remember, like people are like, I'm just going to go out and get that Omicron. It's less virulent or it's less severe than Delta. It's the same level of severity that the original Wuhan strain was. And so I think that's an important point for us to make. So thank you.
Same thing that had us locking ourselves in our houses 2 years ago is the thing people are talking about. Oh, I'm just gonna get it and I'll be good. And then they want to ask, well, you think Omicron will cause long COVID? Did the original? Where did the concept of long COVID come from? Hello.
Yeah. Let's be very clear. Yes, it definitely will cause long COVID.
It just amazes me how lax people are with these masks. I went to a Braves game and I had a mask on, and it was like I was like, "Where's Waldo in there?" You know, and nobody had a mask on.
Oh, you know why? You know what the excuse? They get a cup and they hold it the whole time. They're like,
yeah.
The idea of doing this and this is just foreign.
No, you put a hole in the mask. I can't see if I put a hole in my mask, see it won't be as protected. So I can't put the straw through the mask. And I'm just
it was a wild experience.
So Kukar, here's the
crazy.
If you think that you've been impressed before and kind of like wowed before I got on, Mark Allen, please make it a point to show him in the epidemiology the difference in the waves and what we're dealing with Omicron versus first wave. And talking about severity.
It's coming.
What do they say in Hamilton? Just you wait.
It's coming in 4 minutes. We'll start up again. But Cool Card, any myths that you want us to break for you? Or, I know that, we talked about last night, one of the reasons why we got this show started was that we wanted to be myth breakers. The funny one that always sticks with me was when Eric was talking yesterday, last night on the show, that we went on tour. What he meant was that we went on tour to a lot of the different churches, specifically the Black churches here in New Orleans or the New Orleans area. And we heard a lot, even in the early days. And the one that always stands out to me, Eric, and Eric knows it's my favorite, is the blow dryer in the nose. I keep a blow dryer in the nose, or if I take
burn it out,
hydrogen peroxide, sniffing alcohol, rubbing alcohol, all that.
No, none of that stuff. No.
At first, it was what was it? Drink all sorts of teas and this and that, and
then they would debate. There was actually a debate about what type of liquor to put in the hot toddy. No, seriously, gin versus vodka tequila. It was just nuts.
Oh yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
I want to know: are you guys gonna do an episode, animated episode about mRNA, or have you already done?
Well, we did. The first one we did was on mRNA. So I think that without having first talked to Eric first about it, but it looked like we talked about we have probably a couple more that are in the can that it looks like that we're going to be doing for the city of New Orleans. And one of the things that they're wanting us to do is focusing on looking at the vaccines and trying to engage more communities of color to get vaccinated. So, Eric, I was thinking that this may be the one that we do on Kizzmekia Corbeil.
Yeah, this would be a good one. I'm going to work on trying to. I ran into Wild Wayne, and he actually got to interview Dr. Fauci.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
They did.
How did that happen?
I don't know, but I'm going to ask him, and I'm going to see if we can get. I'm going to work. I'm trying to work magic, but.
Right.
The thing that we love about Kukar, the cool thing that we really love about the cartoons is that in the realm of animation, anything's possible. Like anything's possible.
Right.
Like, it was Mark Allen, like he said, he can't. Eric, what would you think about doing an animation? And we can go, yes. Will we be in the body? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's all possible.
So, yeah, Cool Card. This is who invented the mRNA vaccine.
Yeah, you say
Dr. Corbeil. She invented the vaccine, man. That's
wow.
I think it's important. I think it's important for people to know that, especially people who are in Black and brown communities, to see that the person who invented the vaccine looks like them. And I do not know why they did not put that out there more. Eric and I were standing on top of mountaintops saying, look at the person who invented the vaccine. She's black. Like, come on, like, I don't mean to be so crude about it, but like, it was like, that was such an easy way to try to get people, especially, again, we talked about it at length last night. We understand why there's a hesitation, but why they put Fauci up there, that's fine, but to have Dr. Corbett up there was super important.
I know, you see Fauci everywhere being interviewed. You don't see her anywhere.
Yeah. But cool card, I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna let Mark Allen, I'm gonna see how far he can go with it. It would be great to do for the minority communities, particularly African American communities. I think it would be kind of dope if we did like a historical perspective on vaccines. And Mark Allen, we start with Onesimus.
Eric,
who is Onesimus?
Yes.
Who's Onesimus?
Yes.
Do that.
Onesimus is I learned this from Eric Griggs. He actually was the first known individual who actually used vaccine technology, and he was kidnapped from Africa, brought to the United States, and showed
Cotton Mather.
Is that where he was? Cotton Mather?
Yeah, Cotton Mather was his owner.
Yeah, Cotton Mather was his owner. God, that's a name that it's gonna be impossible for me to forget, right?
Right.
And showed how you can use cowpox. You can take some of the because cows get smallpox. It's called cowpox, and if you take some of that and you put it into the human body just under the skin, that's enough to create a immune response. And in Africa, where Onesimus was from, that was what they did
For smallpox.
He brought that technology.
Yeah,
for smallpox. I said smallpox.
There was a smallpox outbreak, and it was 17. I forgot the last 2 years. In the 1700s, and Cotton Mather had his slave Onesimus and said, "Hey, what do y'all do? We have smallpox as an outbreak. What do y'all do?" Well, for centuries in Africa and in other civilizations, like in China, in Asian culture, we use a process called vacuolation. And that's what they do. They take a little bit, they pick it up under the skin, and it protects them. Well, they started doing it 100 years later. Edward Jenner, there was a cowpox outbreak. And if you look at the root of the word vaccination, vaca means cow. Vaca.
Oh, wow.
So there you have vaccination.
I love
but it started with Onesimus the slave 100 years prior to. Now, if you want to link that to generational trauma, generational fear, blah, blah, blah. All of it, your whole DNA just relaxes when you realize that, hold on, wait, this is something that we've been doing for centuries.
Yes, it's so important. I think you're right. I think we strike at this point. This is something that Eric and I have been talking, Doc Griggs and I have been talking about for a long time, is focusing on looking at the history specifically that Black people have had in vaccines and in vaccine technology. And I think that it's important for us to really bring that out. Eric, I think it's a very good point for these New Orleans ones. I think maybe that's where we really do show that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we bring it all the way up to modern day. I think it'd be dope.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have about 13 minutes left, so let's
cool car, put your seatbelt on. Here it goes.
let's
take off my
glasses. What we got?
Just watch.
Let's go into epidemiology.
Look at this, Eric. I can see these charts.
We have 384,808,906 people globally. We know it's a huge undercount. Deaths 5,715,840. Look, we added last night just 3 million.
Just one
cases.
night, cool card.
God.
That's 3 million cases just in the last 24 hours, with globally 11,438. So we're seeing. So you could see
crazy.
cases are going up.
Mark Allen, show him the different what's what. Go back.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So cool card. Look at this. This was the strain that emerged out of Wuhan that everybody was freaking out about.
We're freaking out.
this caused a lockdown globally, right? Then this was the summer strain. This, of course, was the winter strain that developed into Alpha, and then, of course, developed into Delta. This is global, so the U.S. will be a little bit more familiar to you. But it looked like a minute for a second that there was a downtick, but I think that this became BA2. So I'm not going to say that we're on the downside quite yet globally, but until we have more data that goes down here.
Do
But
you know why he's not going to do that? Because every single time he says, "Oh, this looks like this could be," it skyrockets.
Shoots back up.
Right.
2 years.
Like right here, I was like, "Oh, we're going down." Nope. I'm like, "Oh, we're going down." Nope. We're going down. Nope. And then up here, I even presented to the mayor. I was like, "We're going down," and then it was like the next day I looked, and it was like up to here, and I'm like, like why? And so like Eric said, I will never ever do. Here, I'm go. We're going down. Back up again. So no.
For the record, folks, I have nothing to do with that. He said that on his own. That was not on the phone on this podcast. Cool card. He did. This is all between when it's Pumes. It's on them. I mean,
you can see cases are going up significantly of mortality, so deaths. So we are seeing increases in deaths globally.
Only deaths
again by day.
This is deaths
day.
Yeah, this is per day. So we are seeing increases in deaths. Here is again, we're seeing these are confirmed cases. You can see Denmark's having a heck of an uptick in cases. Of course, this was I think the next slide will show what I think Graylin was talking about today when he asked us. But look how they have had to adjust the y-axis all the time. They have to keep adjusting. Like nobody has ever seen obviously anything that looks like this. So here we can see Denmark out of the world cases continue to increase. Look at this dramatic figure. I think it's really funny. And then Denmark decided to remove all COVID-19 public health mitigations. So look where they were. And then look what they blew past their previous line. And look at the cases going up like that. You can see hospitalizations are going up as well. Deaths are slowly going up. And thankfully, ICUs are going down. And this is largely, again, due to the fact that this is a very likely to be a less virulent virus. I think we have talked about that. Where are we seeing cases around the world? The U.S. finally has reached its turning point, thankfully. But I'm going to show you how Europe is on fire. I talked about that this morning on WBOK with Eric Griggs and Graylin Banks as well. So I think it's important for us to recognize now why Europe. Nobody knows. It's so incredibly difficult to understand why we are seeing this level. So here, of course, we've got Northern Europe. Here you've got England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland. Here, of course, you have your Central Europe. I'm sorry, this is Northern Europe. I'm sorry, Northern Europe is Scandinavia. My apologies. Here's the UK. Here is where you have the Western Europe, Eastern Europe going into Russia, and so you could see it's just it's just an unbelievable number of cases. Here you have these are some of the richest countries in the world. Here, why they have such high case rates, it's hard to say. Now, one of the things that we did talk about is that at least in South America, and we're going to see this in China as well. And it's important for us to keep our eyes on China because the Winter Olympics are going to be there. But they used a lot of the Chinese vaccine, the Sinopharm and the Sinovac, and those vaccines do not appear to be effective against the Omicron variant. So that is for us to kind of keep an eye on as we move forward.
There's a lot of vaccines manufactured in China. Not Chinese vaccines. Manufactured in China.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. My apologies. Thank you for that correction, Eric. These were vaccines that were originated. And I think Graylin asked a really good question today. Graylin asked us today, why are they not performing as well? And the reason is they're not using mRNA vaccines. They're using older technology in which one of the things that they are doing is they are the technology that they're using is that it's geared specifically to the spike protein from the virus that emerged out of Wuhan. So when that spike protein mutates with each variant, that you're going to see the vaccine efficacy go lower and lower. So that's specifically what's happening there. In the U.S., you can see our cases. Look at this, known cases, 76,746,168. We're rapidly approaching 1 million known deaths. We added 270,000, almost 271,000. And look at this, we're still upwards.
We added 270,000 cases yesterday.
Just last night. Yeah.
Last night?
Yeah.
1 day.
Yes. That's low.
Lord.
But Cool Card, at like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it was up to 800,000. It was almost 1 million cases a day. Yeah,
Wow.
I'll show. Yeah.
Showing the death. We had 2,800 deaths yesterday.
Yeah, 2,800 deaths just yesterday.
I feel like in December and January, I was hearing like every other day somebody that I knew had COVID.
Yep.
Was that the height of Omicron? Was that at the height of it?
Yeah, that was the peak of it right here.
Okay.
So at the peak of it was 800,000 cases. And here's where we locked down. Here's our summer of like, ooh, you know, here is the big 2021 winter crunch that happened after Christmas and then the holidays, and then everything kind of settled down. And this was the big Delta. And it's like, nothing is going to get worse than Delta. Wrong. They have to adjust the y-axis. It's just an incredible number of cases. Testing is going up. Hospitalizations hopefully are starting to come down, but we are seeing continued deaths. And again, you know, in terms of a vaccine, we are only 6% fully vaccinated for all ages, 5 and up at 68%. So we still have a long way to go. Test positivity rates going down, thankfully, and what is in red. So test positivity rates and then case rates are going down. So I think we are truly on the back end of the peak. However, hospitalizations hopefully peaked out and hopefully are kind of coming down at this point. And then deaths, you can see here, deaths are still going up, and we are seeing increases in mortality. And the people who are dying are people who are unvaccinated. So who are the unvaccinated? Well, in green shows you who are the unvaccinated. So let's go down to where the most green is. It's down here. And so you could see people who are rural, who are white evangelical Christians, and who are Republicans account for 25%, 27%, and 26% respectfully. So we have said this a million times. You've heard me say this. Unfortunately, people who die of vaccine of a vaccine preventable death is always the most worrisome. But these are people who are dying as a result of big science. Here again, number of case rates that are happening amongst the unvaccinated versus those that are boosted versus those that just have a 2-dose vaccine. So you can see the people who are in the hospitals and who are truly getting sick are those that are truly unvaccinated. People who are unvaccinated, 13 times likelihood of testing positive for COVID and 68 times risk of dying from COVID. This is from people who are unvaccinated. It's truly shocking to me how that can be the case. I'm sorry that I'm just going to kind of try to rush through things here. This is looking at cases. This is looking at cases here in Georgia. So Cool Car, these are. This is looking at your neck of the woods. It looks like in Georgia things have definitely gotten better. The vaccination rate is lower than the standard rate with the U.S., which is about like 64%. And here you can see the hot spots are in the most southern, western, rural. These are the rural areas, right? Yeah. Looking at Louisiana, we peaked over 1 million cases. We're rapidly approaching 16,000 deaths. We added almost 5,000 cases just last night with 70 deaths. Here you can see that it looks like we are definitely we've peaked out as well, but we are still seeing increases in deaths. So with that, I'm going to just kind of stop here, and then we have what do we have? We have about a minute or so. So any last thoughts from you guys?
Quick question.
Yes.
What's the effectiveness? Okay. Cloth mask or the N whatever mask, those types of masks.
Yeah.
The effectiveness. Yeah. What's
so prior to Omicron, cloth masks were fine. I think now, I think that wearing a KN95 or as we asked here, KF94s You want something that's very tight fitting. The people who wear the mask that do this, that doesn't do any good. The mask that Doc Griggs has on right now, you want something like that. Those are the best masks that you can use as well.
You can double up. You can double.
And I usually double up like that, like Doc Griggs is doing, so that we can keep the integrity of the mask intact. So with that, again, Eric Cool Card Hawkins, he has a show called Kicking It with Cool Card, Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. You can find his YouTube channel at Cool Card. That is his YouTube. Please subscribe. He has a great number of subscribers. We have to go. Eric, any last thoughts? Eric,
no, man, I'm just I want to be cool like Card. His name is Eric. I'm cool like Card. Cool.
Hey, you can also check me out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. It's for, you know, you
peace
guys
out, everybody.